foreign wars over oil and things like that. I mean, in all honesty, we've got so much of it here that, I mean, can you imagine trying to hold both positions at the same time? Yeah, we're invading other countries for oil, but we don't want to mine any of the stuff that's here. Like it has to be theater because there's no way to square the circle.
And that is a great way to jump into the live. We are finally giving the fans what they want, boys. We are
Yep.
live. Let's go ahead and do our introductions. We got Dave.
Hey, how's it going tonight, guys?
We got Fash.
Hey boys, good to talk to you tonight.
I am here. We also have Doppler in the background. I'm Otis, by the way. We got Doppler in the background. He'll be back in 2 seconds.
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Doppler came back.
Yeah.
All right, and that is a great tower being built in the chat. We appreciate your dedication to almost
Enthusiasm.
right?
Tower constructors after my own heart. No, it sounds like it's a huge logistical operation that you got going on up there, and it kind of highlights one of the things that we wanted to talk about with everybody today. Just this thing doesn't work unless all of it works, and that goes for the large mining operations and right down to the small residential stuff. You can, if you mess it up at any juncture along the way, it has complications like for the rest of the chain as a whole. So every no matter what position you hold in any one of these industries, and we talked about it last episode a little bit. I mean, if you sweep a broom, you're the best broom sweeper that they got. Because literally it is that easy to muck up the machine. And we wanted to talk with you guys a little bit tonight about just the transition that people make between each of the different phases of employment, kind of as you progress in your career from entry level to where we're at right now. So since we were talking about the mining portion of it, you want to go ahead and kick us off, Fash?
Sure. I can talk about my own little journey that I've been through in my 17 years in the trade. And so what happened is I started off, I mentioned on the last show, I was looking for that job, that just, basic $10 an hour, something to get me started, labor job. And I got one at a weld shop, busted my ass, and I got my apprenticeship there. So what I did with them was, unfortunately, continue to do labor work. It was some sweeping and, move this and do all that type of nonsense. The general stuff you'd expect in a in a welding shop. So what I ended up doing was slowly being able to pick up a little bit of welding here and there. They'd bring me stuff and just, do this, do that. And I'd be able to slowly practice my skills and learn more. But the unfortunate thing is that shop, well, it was a full production line. So you had out one end of the shop, all the raw steel, and then it got processed, whether it was on a CNC cutting table, cut into whatever pieces you need to cut the plate into, or the bandsaws to cut tubing, pipe, round stock, flat bar, whatever you need. Then it goes and it bumps onto the fitters. They fit everything up into what it needs to be built into, what your final product is. So it was a construction equipment attachment company. So you'd be looking at the fork racks and the gravel buckets and anything that you could put onto a piece of equipment. So we would go and then bump that from the fitters down to the welders, and at the end of the line was me, and I would get it. And it had sharp, rough corners from the cutting table to cut the new pieces. It had spatter from the welders. It had tacks. It had this, that. Anything that had a pin that needed to be fitted. Well, the bores don't quite line up perfectly. So I'd have to buff those out, make sure that I could get those bores to line up, get a dummy pin to fit through. It was all just very, very basic general work. I spent most of my time on a grinder. Now here's the thing, because the boss was a hard ass, and he didn't really like anyone moving up. It was stay there. My welding bays are all full, so how can I make you a welder? Because I don't have a spot on the floor for you as a welder. So I got my hours. They would credit me my hours, and I was able to do that and build up my hours so that I'd be able to attend trade school and get to my actual journeyman. But the boss, every time I'd talk to him, oh, I'm busy, later. I'm busy, talk to me later, talk to me later. And then it would be the end of the week, talk to me next week. And that went on and on and on. So for where I'm at, welding is a 3-year trade. Now, normally you would, spend a year, maybe a year and a half welding or laboring, and then you get your book and you start doing your apprenticeship. Unfortunately, 3.5 years, I only got to go to school once. So I had all my hours because they credited all those hours towards my schooling. And they'd allowed me to go to school one time. And I talked to another guy who was there, and he did get his journeyman through that company. But for a 3-year trade, it took him 6 years before the company would allow him to go to school enough times to actually get his journeyman ticket to allow him much better career opportunities. And he wasn't even planning on leaving. He didn't leave, but I was not willing to do that. So once I had all my hours, I got my book signed off, finally, after I harassed my boss, and I went to school on my own. Now, with a lot of these trades, your employer will either pay for your trade schooling, or some of them, if it's a very hotly sought-after trade in a very big industry, you can actually be paid full wage from your company and your schooling paid for while you're there. It depends, though. Like I said, it's all about the type of industry, the region you're in. Everything factors into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I just told him. I said, hey, look, I'm going to school. And he flipped out at me. He was furious. And I said, look, man,
Really?
I'm not... Yeah, oh yeah. I said, look, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. I got all my hours. I'm sick of every day getting brushed off and told, oh, next time, talk to me tomorrow, right? Because I didn't want to sit there and be the laborer forever. So,
Yeah, throw this in here.
Go ahead.
'Cause
Yeah.
we had somebody say something about this last time. They asked us about trade school, and that was the best. That's the best analogy. What the story you laid out just now, you're getting that experience by being on the job. But
Yeah.
when you don't have somebody that's in the step above you, that's like working on your behalf in your best interest to help you progress, like if you've got a roadblock like what you're talking about, then that is the time. Absolutely, dude. That is when you pull the plug and say, you have to hang in to get your hours. Some of the stuff you do just have to put the time in. You have to. That's the only way, because they're going to require that go to try and test out. But I would just wanted to agree and amplify on that, because for those guys who are considering it, if you've got somebody who's like leading you by the hand, I mean, even if it's a little rough, expect to be abused. Expect to be abused a little bit. But at least if they're leading you by the hand through the trade so that you can move to that next rung, then that's fantastic. But in a case like what you're talking about, for sure, dude, and sometimes this is what you have to do.
Yeah, and there's
yeah.
usually always that one old timer in the shop that if he sees you working hard, he will be your voice that, somebody the boss takes a little more serious. But if you don't have that person, you got to do exactly what Fash is talking about. Do not
Have
let
you
your
guys
boss
ever-
forget. Fucking drill him every day. Hey, I need this. Hey, I need this. Hey, you're failing me right now. I'm not going to let it happen.
I got a little an offshoot here. How many times you ever run into old hands when you were coming up in the trades, and you were trying to learn shit from them, and they would block you. They'd shut you down, and they didn't want to share their knowledge because they didn't want you to take their job. Because I've seen that a lot.
Dude, I had guys roll. I watched foremans come and roll up the prints off the print table and take them
Yeah.
because it was
they're
break
threatened.
time. Yeah, because it was break time, and some of the helpers were like asking questions. At the time, I was just, an apprentice.
Yeah.
But I'd been I had the luck of having spent some time with some dudes that wanted to teach me, so I was like, hell yeah, here's my chance. I can, help some younger dudes get their footing. So it's break time. I mean, they got burritos in hand, right? Like mouth chaw, like cheek full of burrito, chewing through break while we're looking over plans and explaining stuff to them. It's like literally just walk up, not say a word, roll up the prints, and walk off, and just leave everybody standing there like, what the fuck? But that's exactly what it is. Yeah, they're job scared. They don't want
Yeah.
anybody stepping in.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'll carry on here. This is when things get interesting. So I'd
Okay.
gone to school for my first year. I come out, and it was about 4 months later, and I told my boss, I said, I'm going to second year. I registered. And he just, yells at me, yada, 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 whatever. I go back to work. And then I go, and I'm off for my couple months of school, do my 2-month intake, and get my little training and hands-on and book learning and whatnot done. And I come back out of that, and the first day I come back, I walk in, he goes, we don't need you anymore. I said, good. I'm already registered for third year in 2 months. I
That's
hate
right.
this job. Yeah. I have no connection, and I'm not coming back. I'm not going to ask for my job back. I don't care. The only thing I needed out of that place was my hours by then, because it wasn't ideal. It wasn't great, and the unfortunate part is that I didn't get a lot of welding experience. So I went, I did my second, I did my third. I come out of my third year as a journeyman, and because I didn't have welding experience, when I had to go and do my practical test to get my journeyman ticket, I'd failed. And I had to go in and do a bit more practice and then go and retest. And the next time I went and tested, I'd passed. Because, that happens. I mean, sometimes you hit a roadblock, sometimes you're ill prepared. And I mean, I did kind of slip through the system that way because they credited me a bunch of hours for just general labor work. Like 90% of my time on the end of an angle grinder. And if I picked up the 5-inch grinder, whew, yeah, it was hey, why don't you have the 7-inch grinder, which is a much bigger and heavier tool, but it's a lot faster, supposedly, right? So it was the only time you get the 5 inches when you need to get in them tight spaces. But I took what I could out of that, and with the actual just good attitude and hard work, I was able to get my journeyman, and being inexperienced generally, though, I did meet a guy in school, and he got me the current job that I have now. And I showed up here, and let me tell you about intimidating. When you get into the oil field industry,
Oh, I bet.
and the mining industry, and all I hear, it's all out of town work, right? So I hear about this, and then I end up, all right, I get the job. I did, ace the phone interviews, no problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got to drive all these hours in the middle of the nowhere, and then I show up, and then no weld test, no nothing. This was a big boom, and they were taking everyone they could. So I was able to just kind of walk in. They go, oh yeah, here, just go weld that. And I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh yeah.
I was completely lost. And I had my flubs, I had my mistakes right up front. And I mean, there was times when I was everything there was learning. I was a journeyman that basically had the experience of maybe a first year apprentice. And the thing is, I never hid that. I never lied about it. But I was eager and I was attentive, and that actually helped out a lot for me, because the honesty, you'll get good responses. When they see someone who's motivated and willing to learn, generally
Yeah.
they'll be able to be like, all right, the guy might not be there yet, but he's young, he's got the energy, and he's interested. So I was able to go and just kind of work my way up, learn more and more. And there was times where I'd look at something and they go, yeah, we need you to weld this out here. It's got to look good at the end. And I was like, oh, that welding position's a little awkward, and I'm not sure if I can do that. I don't have that much practice yet. So I went and I told the boss, I said, yeah, I mean, I don't know how good I can make that look. He says, look, and this is an old guy, he's been around a long time, but he was a straight shooter. So he really appreciated the fact that I was able to just go in and tell him, an actual honest thing instead of going screwing something up.
Yep.
And he says, I want you to give it a try. He said, you go ahead, you give it a try, and then you come back and you grab me in a couple hours, and I'll come take a look at it. And we'll take a look and we'll see how it is. And sure enough, I'm sitting there and I'm sweating and I'm trying my best. And I'm just not pleased. It just doesn't look right. So I go and grab him and I'm like, hey man, look, this is what I got. And then he says, okay, I'm going to take you. I'm going to put you on this other job with another old hand. He's going to go and help you out, and you're going to learn some stuff from him. I'm going to grab another guy. He'll take care of this. So don't worry about that. And hey, thanks for being upfront about it. We don't want to screw a bunch of shit up and have to redo work, right?
Yeah, dude.
And,
right there. You're dead on it.
Yeah.
Before we get real far away from one of the things you said earlier, I wanted to toss something in on just being the guy that has to do the cleanup work after in the assembly line, where you're like well, you were saying knocking off the hard edges and just some of the splatter that was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. So one of the things, and I'm sure this is got to translate for you guys in the same way that we have similar things in electrical work, which is when it may seem like shit work, but and it sounds like the instance that you're referencing, that you did get kind of put through the ringer. But at the same time, everybody remembers when they were the low man on the totem pole and had to do stuff like that. So things like having a lot of splatter, if you spent a lot of time having to clean that stuff up, like it affects your technique later when you're the guy doing the weld. I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like you know when you leave splatter everywhere, that somebody's going to have to come behind you and clean it up. Every step of the process is potential polishing, and I don't want to make a bunch of excuses for a dude that very obviously sounds like he was engaged in some gatekeeping, like Chris put it, but some of those guys they look at it in terms of, even if the system's changed where there's a fast way to become a credentialed tradesman, like that, they didn't get through it that fast, and they don't want to see anybody else get through it that fast either. So the paying your dues isn't just a line item, that comes out of your check. In unions, it's a time-honored tradition in all of these trades where you got to be the shit man on the totem pole for X amount of time, and like some of this going on in the chat, basically, yeah, you're right. It's the work ethic when you're hungry, and you do the best job that you can, and more than that, what you hit on just a second ago, just being honest and saying, look, I don't know if I'm cut out to do this. Like, I don't know if I have the skill to do this right now, and I don't want to mess it up. Being that straightforward about what your current abilities are, it's very endearing to the upper management or people whose ass will be getting chewed if you F a whole bunch of it up. Real simple, quick example for us is in electrical work is a large PVC conduit. When you have to heat it, so it may sound real simple, but you take Schedule 80 4-inch PVC conduit, you throw it in a 4-foot heater, and you're supposed to be able to heat and shape and bend that to get around obstacles or whatever in the underground. But if you start,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, yeah, it's an artwork for sure. But at the same time, if you're burning a bunch of them and you gotta throw them away, that stuff adds up. I mean, it gets really expensive really fast when you got somebody that's kinking and burning conduits. So I know exactly what you mean when you say, like, look, I don't know if I'm cut out to do this because I don't have a lot of experience with it, and I don't want to cost us time and money for me to learn here. And that makes my heart happy that that dude, kind of, well, he gave you a shot at it just to see. I mean, because hey, you never know, you may not be giving yourself enough credit. But then at the same time, look, if it's not up to snuff, then look, we're gonna stick you with somebody who can pass those skills on to you. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, it's the same way on the roofs when we have, we always allot for probably 15 to 20% waste as far as material goes. and you start miscutting a valley or screw up cutting a hip, and we have to replace 4 or 5 panels because you told us, oh no, I did this for 10 years, and even though it's my first 2 weeks on the job and this will be the first time I have to do something like this for your, oh, I totally got it, so we let you go because we have our own shit to do and we are working around, and then you use up 15 of the 20% waste we accounted for. It not only does it piss us off because you lied to us and said you could do it when you couldn't, and it don't take more than 5 minutes to say, hey, this one's giving me trouble. Can y'all come over and show me how y'all do it? Kind of like Fash did, or like Dave was talking about, like, hey, you just burned 3 of these 15 footers and we only bought 5 extra, so you're about to have to make us do a run that was not allotted in anybody's time schedule, and that's going to screw us all up. So
Yeah. No, absolutely, dude. I mean, and you're on it there. When it's just so, you probably feel you yourself, being involved in like small business, you probably feel the pinch on that a lot harder because if you price out a project, right? You do calculations and estimate how much material you have to have. You factor in, a percentage of waste, and if you're running a tight crew where all the guys involved, what they're capable of.
yeah, you can add in 7% waste instead of the usual 15, and y'all will be all right.
And then on top of it, anything that gets left over can go into the next project, and you charge the second customer for the same amount of material, whether you already owned it and had it at the farm or not.
Yeah.
So you're really getting into somebody's bottom line when you start messing up stuff, and it's human error and in actual mistakes. That's one thing, but when you put yourself out there and say that you're capable of stuff that you're not, and then you start eating into people's paychecks and wallets. And I don't know how you guys handle business, but a lot of these smaller outfits, they do profit sharing. I mean, that's a really common thing, So you can literally be, through your arrogance and your ego, you can literally be taking money out of the wallets of the men that you're working beside.
Yeah, no, I literally just got a $500 bonus on the last job we finished up because not only did we knock it out early, and we had material left over that, anything left over, if we can't use it on a job we know we have coming up, we'll go and scrap it. And, usually the scrap will pay for Friday's lunch and a couple drinks, and we'll have a good time together. But this job, it ended up with the overhead that we didn't actually need and everything. It ended up with $500 extra in each of our pockets.
Yeah, see, and that's the that's the side of it too, is because we have a similar thing when we do terminations on large panels or do large wire pulls. You always account for a little more than what you actually need, just because we don't have a wire stretcher. If they send you to get one, we'll talk about the wire stretcher later.
Oh, we will.
There's generally scrap left over because we plan for it to be long, but that scrap from when you do terminations, that stuff gets cashed in too, and you don't want to be the reason why the boys did not get to have their pig in the poke, the fucking barbecue and beers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we would have got to have a great time, except this one dick.
This asshole over here.
Don't be that guy. Just, if you can't do it, say you can't do it, and don't be one of these people. I mean, 'cause you look at Fascist Friend's story. Just, the guy spent time inside the shop, and he put him so he got his hours in, and then he went to school. That is entirely different from I send you to the parts trailer to get parts and you're the parts jockey for 2 years, and you get your 4 years, and you get your 4,000 hours or your 2,000 hours, and then you go claiming to be an electrician, and then getting people hurt or messing up wire pulls or burning conduit and stuff like that. Just don't put yourself in the position, man. There's enough of us out there that we will help you if you don't know, as long as you're willing to say that you don't know. And if there's nobody there that'll do that, then you're in the wrong job anyway.
Yeah, and for us, our low man's always been the ground guy. And the ground guy, he hands us up panels. He'll carry shingles up the ladder when we need, a few more shingles. But most importantly, he is the cleanup guy. And if you have a shitty ground guy, that adds, anywhere from a half to a full extra day on a job cleaning up. And you got that good,
nails, screws,
you got that
straps,
good ground guy. And when you nail in that last shingle, you screw off that last piece of trim, you come down the ladder, and the only thing you have to do is put the ladder on the trailer and drive away. Man, I don't care if you don't feel like you were a part of the team, but I got to come off the roof, put the ladder on the trailer, and go home. I didn't have to spend 3 hours cleaning up stuff that you could have been doing between carrying shingles up a ladder or between, handing us up panels that we needed. Like having a solid ground guy, having a solid bottom of the totem pole makes every job go so much smoother. So even if you find yourself, you're, as Chris Brown was saying, even if you're that 18-year-old with a bad attitude, if you do the best fucking job that you can, everyone's going to love you. And it will ease you into, hey, you're the ground, get up here, I'm going to show you how I cut this piece of trim. Get up here, I'm going to show you how I shape this panel, how we trim these shingles so that, next week when we need 4 guys on the roof instead of 3 guys running nail guns or screwing off panels, you can get up here and you aren't completely stupid, and we can do cleanup later. We just need to get this finished up. And it, being the best bottom of the totem pole you can, the best bottom you can, no homo.
No.
Did you have more, Fash? Because I was
I was gonna say.
Sorry,
let
Fash.
Let me cut in. I'm gonna shorten up and finish off here. So, there's a good second part to this story. It was probably about a year later. So I'd been there for a little bit, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2. I'd learned a bit, I'd gone out to some mine sites. I was kind of getting more well-rounded. And the thing is, I was always upfront and honest with all my supervisors about the fact that I didn't know what I was doing about a lot of things. So they were like, all right, we're going to give you a ton of shit work, and you're going to learn from it, and you're going to be able to, the majority of the work was all the welding would get blend ground. So I could do shitty welds, because at the end of the day, it's all blend ground. Until my welds got better and better, and the better your welds are, then the less you have to grind at the end. So it's kind of a, you get punished, and then you punish yourself less and less and less. So I got approached by the supervisor again. He says, hey, I got this project here, come with me. So we go and we look. And it's an axle box of a massive haul truck, and this fucking thing had some shitty repair welding done. He says, I need you to weld out and put a good weld on. Oh, well, I don't know. He says, yeah, you can do it. And I was like, oh, all right. Sure enough, by the end of the day, job's done. Looked fantastic. And at the end, he comes up, he says, see, I told you. You've learned a lot. You moved up a lot. He said, just have more confidence now. He said, you're getting there. So, and it was good, because it's when I learned who it was who'd done the shitty welding. It was a guy who'd been there probably about 3 or 4 years longer than I had. So he was a much more experienced welder, but he did shittier quality work, and made me feel pretty good. And I quickly moved up, where I became the #1 guy on the crew for on call, for like getting called to go out to sites. Anytime that we had a call to go out to one of the mine sites or to one of our customers out in the field, I was the top guy. And I earned that position by being good at my job, personable, and hardworking. And what that ended up doing is that I was able to go out whenever we got a new customer. They send me out. So I'd go work for this new customer, and just with me dealing with them, I'd be able to go out there and work for them for a week, sometimes 2, sometimes a few months. And then afterwards, hey, we need 2 guys. We need 4 guys. Look, we got a big project coming. I was able to end up securing us big contracts just by me being the first guy on site, busting my ass, and actually doing a very good job. And there's another thing that actually goes over well is be personable and be friendly with your customers and with the other people that you're working with. It goes a long, long way. And I'll tell you, man, they used me a lot and sent me everywhere they could. And now they wanted me to be a supervisor. They tried to pull me up into the supervisor position. I'd filled in a few times. It just wasn't for me. And I even told them, I said, look, I'm a young guy, and this is at the time I was 25. I said, I'm a young guy, and I don't feel comfortable being the boss over coworkers that I work next to every day who've been in the trade for 30 years. I said, these guys, I have a lot more to learn from them. I'm not experienced enough to get into management yet, and I enjoy my job. And I know a lot of people around me who've been doing it for a while. They're getting old, their knees are bad, their back is bad, but they're really knowledgeable. They'd be great for supervisor positions. Those are the guys you should move up, right? Of course, the company, they don't really want good supervisors. They want yes men, which is typical. But, and the thing is, all my years of service, 13 years now with this company, I get treated very well. And I've moved up into the Joint Safety Committee. So I have meetings monthly with our branch manager, head of safety, basically the tops of all the departments in the company, and I'm just a welder in coverall. But they look to me for a lot of feedback from the floor, and I get a lot of respect for these people, and it really pays off. Like, that's the thing, is once you've actually established yourself as somebody who is reputable, you can actually gain a lot of respect from even the people who are your boss. And that's where I think you need to be. So I'm just, that's about where I'm at now. I'm not really sure if I'll ever move up, because I do love my job. And it's a rare thing. So we'll see how it all goes. But I'm going to pass this off, so...
All right, before we do a pass, let's give a big old shout out to Buzz. Thanks for the ice cream. Thanks for the lemons. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Chris Brown, thanks for your story, man.
Yes, sir.
Hell yeah.
Much appreciated, gentlemen.
I'm really pleased to see, already, but with just 2 shows in, we've got a handful of people in here donating, listening live. That's fantastic. And I hope we do see a lot more growth so that we can help a lot more people out. And I mean, hopefully we're entertaining. Yeah, maybe.
Just a little bit.
But best thing, yeah.
And
I want to
absolutely.
entertain people, but at the same time provide a good service to them and make sure their lives get better.
Yep, and I don't care if it's a question about how to stop your end table from shaking to, hey, this is a problem I'm having with my car. If you've got it right now, put it in the chat. If we can't answer it, we'll drop it in the Discord and we'll find someone who can and get you the answer next show.
Yeah,
That's right.
we can find an answer, trust me.
Yeah, Otis, you were kind of leading us down the path here. Something about, a groundbreaking work technique where, when you're not busy handing the guys their next piece of material, you're doing something like, I don't know, maybe just picking up instead of playing on your phone or doing graffiti in the porta-john.
Absolutely, man. It's literally that simple. And it's not hard to figure out if you are the low man on the totem pole. All right, because either A, it's your first day, or B, you are whether it's your first day with the company or not, you get in this crew who's been working together for forever, so you find yourself as the whether it's the the house mouse, the, what'd you call it, Dave? The
Ceiling rat?
Yep. Regardless, everybody has their different term in their own trade for the bottom guy. Ours is literally the ground guy. Everybody else is up on the roof doing roofer stuff.
Oh, you mean
If
part? You mean the parts guy? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Uh-huh.
but if you were on the
We
ground,
just call him. We just call him asshole. Hey, asshole, get over here.
Well, it's ground guy a lot of times too. Like old saying in the trade is, if your electrician has to come down off the ladder, you're a shit helper.
yeah, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong, yeah.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
But anyways, no, that was literally so. My dad started the company when I was a sophomore in high school, so that was literally I got out of school at 2:45. By 4 o'clock, that last hour, 2 hours before dark, I was on the job site and I was the ground guy. I was handing up panels. I was doing, anything on the ground that needed to be doing. And most importantly, all day they had been throwing crap off the roof. And I was cleanup guy. And it would never fail. At some point, I would be screwing off, daydreaming. That was before people could play on their phones, luckily, or I would have been real screwed. But just out there daydreaming, thinking about everything else I could be doing, hoping football season would kick off so that I'd have practice after school instead of having to go work with Dad. But I'd be getting hollered at, for like the first, probably until my junior year. It took a full year of getting hollered at by everyone. Like, hey, where the hell's my next panel? Hey, we need another bundle of shingles. What are you doing down there? Quit playing with yourself. Get up the ladder.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I was in the same place Chris Brown's fist was talking about. I was that 16-year-old. Didn't think I should be out there. Didn't care what was happening. Pissed off because I couldn't be hanging out at the Checkers or hanging out at the freaking Sonic drive-thru with all my friends. But it finally...
Being the boss's son, you probably got it a lot harder than the other guys did.
Yeah.
Can I please go screw off with my friends instead of learn these valuable survival techniques, Dad? I mean, there's all this trouble I could be going to get into. Can you do without me today?
Exactly, but yeah, it was literally that, because not only would they yell at me, but then at the end of every day, I would get, anywhere from getting a 1x4 piece of... Oh, I'll never forget. One time I hollered back at somebody, and my dad picked up the closest thing to him, which was about a 3-foot piece of 1/2-inch plywood, a piece of scrap.
Oh no.
And I got caught right on the back shoulder. And luckily it had been there for 2 days, so that it exploded into pieces as soon as he made contact. So it wasn't a forceful hit, but I knew what he was trying to do. So it scared me right into that 6-year-old getting whipped for the first time phase. That no, Daddy, I'm sorry. Oh God, Daddy.
Yeah, that's the thing about being the father on the job, is that, well, you can't really beat your employees, but if your son's there, you can still fucking give him a smack if he needs it, right?
Yeah, that is true. Being the only one there that your dad can physically assault, it makes working a little more tedious.
Oh yeah, I've seen it before. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, working for family is a special brand of fun. Like, the boss isn't. Everyone says the boss is an asshole, but y'all don't have to go home with him when this shit's over with.
Mm-hmm.
He's like this all the time, and he doesn't have to worry about a lawsuit from me.
But no, I am.
I'm gonna hear about this over dinner.
I am glad that I got to learn that way, because right about the middle of my senior year, once I started having things that I wanted money for, started actually getting paid for my work, because for a long time I didn't know it, but I was a unpaid intern on the job.
Oh,
Oh, you were getting paid?
My senior year, once I could
Yeah,
have went and done other things, I started making like $10 an hour.
no, you were getting paid the whole time.
Oh, of course, yeah, I was getting room and
With
board the whole time.
knowledge.
Yeah. Oh
But
man,
now,
they,
yeah, like the experience is actually, it's got value to it. But
family will milk that one hard. They will
Yeah,
milk
exactly.
that one so hard,
Yeah.
harder than anybody else. Yeah,
think of all you're learning.
yeah.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
I can't go out and buy a 6-pack with all this learning though.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
will
right.
say it was the summer of my senior year, right before I went to boot camp and joined the Marine Corps, when I was working with my dad, and we had a little kid from our church. I say little kid, he was probably a junior on his summer break that decided he wanted to make a little money. But I didn't realize until I had to deal with a shitty ground guy
Mm-hmm.
how crappy I had been at it and how annoying it is to have to holler for more shingles, more nails, things that anybody who's been on the job more than a week knows that, hey, I've took up 3 bundles of shingles, I should carry up another box of nails because they are going through them and they're going to want them on the roof and not down at the bottom of the ladder where I am.
Yeah.
And having to be the
Yep.
guy to holler
Yeah.
down, where are my nails? Hey, where are my shingles? Well, why'd you drop them halfway across the roof? I'm working right here, not over there. What are you doing? Quit being lazy. Put the shit where I need the shit.
Well, yeah, dude, that's it, 100%. I mean, and you look at it like this, if you're paying attention to what's happening in front of you instead of screwing off and moaning about the fact that you even have to be there in order to get the money,
Mm-hmm.
you start picking up on things like how fast do these guys work? Well, every 45 minutes or every hour and a half, they're going to need a new bundle. Like, okay, so are you watching what they're doing? Looks like they're getting a little thin. Time to replenish the supply. Or every so many feet of roof,
yeah.
you have to have so many shingles. Like you're watching it go in. It shouldn't take you that long before you can kind of project out where they're going to need the new material. And even if they
Yeah.
got to take even if they got to take a few
It's
steps.
basic pattern recognition.
Uh-huh. No, that's
And-
it.
I mean, you can't necessarily teach someone that. You can coach them beforehand, but they have to see it a couple times until
Mhm.
that hamster wheel starts clicking around, going, "Oh, it's time. It's going to be time for this soon."
Yep, and I will say, Fash, you were talking about farm work in the chat. That is actually what brought me around, because the spring break, my senior year, instead of being able to go party with my friends, my grandpa was putting up a fence around a new piece of property he just bought. So, of course, Dad was like, hey, yeah, the boy can go up there and do that with you. And it went from me being able to drive fence posts around with a four-wheeler to me dicking off one time. And Grandpa said, all right, we'll carry the rest of them. Give me the key. And I carried probably 57 creosote soaked
Oh yeah.
6
Nice
by
and
6 by 10 foot, nice, solid, hefty fence posts
That's
down the line before
Yeah,
I
you're right.
realized, hey, maybe I should pay attention to what needs to happen next. And I did
You're-
that for 2 days, and the last 3 days, I came back the best ground guy ever.
I bet you were. I just buzz real quick in the chat. Yeah, you're right, dude. It'd be nice if there was more money in it, but it's definitely man's work. Farm work is it will make a man out of you.
Yeah.
It'll also send you to trade school if you got a brain.
the thing with farm work is that the best way to do it is to inherit it, and if you're able to do that, well, you're just lucky. And that's how you make money with it. It's by basically inheriting a good farm that has good production. But hey,
And good finances.
yes, yeah, yeah. It ain't easy though, especially
Yep.
nowadays. They're definitely trying to make it harder and harder on the independent farmers. So
Yeah, so that's basically my my working from ground up, once I got out and came back and finally realized that maybe roofing for the rest of my life wouldn't be such a bad idea, because I got tired of, getting all those educations, used up my GI Bill, and realized I didn't want to sit in the office for the rest of my life, and got back on the crew with my dad. I probably took probably 3 days to relearn how to cut trim, relearn exactly the step-by-step process again, and then it was like I never left it from my senior year.
It's just like riding a bicycle on a roof, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we got a little bit of time here before the break. I guess I could jump in here and
I can do it.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
Let's see. So, currently working in power plant industry, and I got started just out of high school. Went into the military. They taught me how to operate the most complicated power plant on the face of the earth. So post that, I got out and I was very specific on where I wanted to work and what that kind of thing. So I didn't get a power plant job right away. Did a couple odd manufacturing industry jobs. And these power plants, they usually end up hiring about once a year. Even if it's just for a one position, right? So if you don't get it the first year, it'll come back around.
Sure.
Got picked up at another power plant in the civilian world. There's a couple different levels, and like the base level is like a equipment operator. It's sometimes it's called an outside operator. And that's you're the lowest guy on the totem pole then. But when you're there, you train, you learn the different watch positions where you watch different equipment, and you work your way up doing that. And I kind of had the opposite experiences. Everyone's always really helpful.
That's good. Yeah.
I think part of that is because if you're the only guy that knows how to do this, guess what? You're doing it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always want to be the guy doing that.
Yeah, there's probably an aspect of it that's like in the line of work that you're in, you don't want anything to go wrong. So,
And everyone needs to know everyone else's job.
basically, yeah.
So, then that plant said that they were closing down, so I knew I had a couple years worth of time to start looking around at other places. And since I was operating the most complicated power plant, when I applied at a much simpler power plant, they went, "All right, you want to be a lead operator?" Sure. And then it's depending on where you go, it's outside or equipment operator. Eventually, you work up to be a lead operator, sometimes called a control room operator. And then after that, you start hitting supervisor positions, whether it's a site supervisor, superintendent, or a shift supervisor, or a mental supervisor. And I have no desire to go up to there because those guys are salaried, and I make more money of them hourly. So
That's one of the reasons I have no intentions of moving up to management. It's like, yeah, my management or like supervisors, they make like their wage is based on ours, and it's like, oh, they make our wage plus 10%, but then we do a bunch of stuff where we get like a $2 premium here, a $3 premium there, and then if I work any overtime, it's like, oh, well,
it adds up. It adds up quick.
Yeah, like I make as much money or more, and I don't have to deal with a bunch of nonsense that you guys do. So I'm happy. Yeah. No, you take the bullshit.
Then just to touch on like alternative routes into that sort of deal, like military is probably half the workforce comes out of like the Navy working on the power generation on ships.
Oh, I bet.
But that being said, there's guys that go to trade schools that specialize in power operation. plenty of those around. They're usually a 2-year course. I don't think there's much in the way of places paying for you to go through that, but there's no shortage of jobs. You can go through that, you can get hired wherever you want, pretty much. And the same thing is, I know at least one or two of the guys at the place that I work now started there as a seasonal employee, where they just come and cut the grass for the summer during their break from school.
Damn.
Or a janitor. I think there's one or two guys that did that. I mean, there's multiple paths if you want it. You just got to apply yourself and keep applying. Because if they don't get you the first time around, eventually they'll come around and be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that is one thing that cannot be understated, is that once your foot is in the door, your foot's in the door. It doesn't matter if, like you were saying, you are the grass cutter or if you are the toilet scrubber. If you are in there, it don't take you 8 hours a day to scrub toilets. You go buddy up with somebody, find every place you're allowed to be in and go learn what that guy's doing. And then someone will take notice that you're trying to advance your position.
Best damn toilet scrubber they ever had in the history of the company.
Yep. And to piggyback onto that, I guess, would be, there's multiple ways to get in, but once you get in and you start making contacts, even if that place shuts down, because that happens occasionally, those people are going to spread out, and then you'll hear about a job opportunity down over here or up over there. A lot of these guys stay in contact and give each other a heads up, especially if they can't find work where they're at and need to move somewhere. They'll be like, hey, try this place, try that place, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I don't think that can get stressed enough. Just the power of networking and how important it is to, build those professional connections. And that goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. I think all of us kind of agree on that point, that whatever it is that you do the very best job that you can, because you never know who might take notice. And sometimes, if you guys recall, Vash's friends talking about it a second ago, the way he got into his job was somebody he met in school. That just kind of turned him on to the opportunity. So you never know what avenue is going to lead you to a prospective position that you wouldn't have found otherwise. So building those connections and conducting yourself in a professional manner can open a lot of those doors, even if they don't necessarily appear that that's a golden opportunity presenting itself. Just you do that all the time, and then you're always in prime condition to make good on any of those opportunities that show up.
And if nothing else, you end up with a really good list of references.
Absolutely. All right, Doppler, was that all you had? We ready to roll into?
I mean, I can go on a little longer, but that's the majority of it.
It's up to you, brother. I'm not going to tell you not to talk.
No, nobody do that.
Especially for any younger guys listening. Average age in the power plant is, they say it's 45. It's from what I've seen, it's up there closer to 50, 55. There's going to be a bunch of opportunity for guys to get into very solid paying jobs. You just got to go after it one way or another. That's about the only thing I felt like it needing to add to that. But.
Alrighty, well, Dave, go ahead. Let's get your story, and then we'll go ahead and hit that good old music, and we'll come back with some fun near-death experiences after the break.
All right, so it's OSHA hour next. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, a lot of the content that you guys shared so far kind of plays right into, it's a shared experience across the industries, I think. But I started out as a helper, which is basically, you know, learn the parts guy. You know, you get sent for all the parts, and you stock out. Well, we'll put it this way. This is the easiest way to explain it. Is carts for electricians. It's like staking your claim in uncharted territories, like homesteading. So you'll fight for one on a job in order to keep on, and it's a helper's responsibility to make sure that that thing never runs out of parts. So there's two facets to this thing. So one, as a helper on an electrical job, and this is not an apprentice, but as a helper, you keep the stock on the cart, which means you have to know what's supposed to be on the cart. And then you make sure that your electrician has, or the guy that you're working under, has the things that he needs before he needs them. Not when he needs them, but before. So the idea here, similar to what Otis was talking about a second ago, is that you should, after a certain amount of time, you should be starting to pick up on the crystal ball effect, where you have been paying attention to what this man with trade skill is doing, and the installation procedure and the things that are required for it. So when you see the amount of conduit, you see conduits come 3/4, half-inch EMT, comes in a 100-foot bundle. So in that 100-foot bundle, you know, you got 10 sticks, 10 foot long. So as that thing starts to whittle down, you should know, hey, dude, when this guy runs out of pipe, you know, that's the end of production. So you take off to go get more. You check first to make sure he doesn't need anything. Are you good for right now? And then you go get the more pipe or the more couplings and what have you. So those sorts of things, it feels like, and this is what I kind of picked up from what Fascist was talking about, just beating the guy that takes out the rough edges and cleans up some of the splatter on the metal, buffing out, like cleaning it up, making it look good after the fact. The process of being the guy that gets parts teaches you what all the parts are, and paying attention to what your guy is doing. And I'll stick with the electrical reference because that's the world I come from. Paying attention to your electrician and the way that he's running conduit. Say, for example, you're going through the overhead. He's running 3/4 EMT, so you need all thread because you have to support it. That's 1/4 inch all thread. You use a 4T1B hanger, so that's what your all thread rod hangs from. He's got to shoot this stuff to the pan deck above, so you need shots for your ram set gun, and you need pins, so you can set that anchor. And you use a jam nut where your all thread rod screws into that hanger, in order to prevent the rod from coming loose and working its way unthreaded from the hanger above. So if you watch how this assembly is being put together, you know all of our hangers are running like 2 foot long, 2.5 feet long. I can only get 5 out of it, or 4 out of a stick. Am I going to have enough all thread? Do I have enough 1/4 inch nuts? Do I have enough couplings? Do I have enough pipe? It's literally your job as a helper is to read the mind and then predict the next steps, project out into the future what your electrician is going to need. So you're, in essence, you're doing everything except for the physical installation. And the reason that I was kind of trying to tie it back to what these guys were talking about is because all the time that you spend there, it may feel like shit work, like you're just the guy that's going to get parts, or you're just the guy that's cleaning up the mess at the end. But those types of experiences, you know what it's like to have to keep a cart stocked. You can estimate out how many parts you're going to need as an electrician, because as an electrician, you know, you're responsible for handing in a parts list. I mean, how does your supervisor know how much material you need to get finished with what you're doing? So one of the signs of a good electrician is to be able to look on the plans, see what's got to go from point A to point B, and then just walk the route, choose a route, and in the look into the overhead to see what kind of obstacles are in your way. Like, I'm gonna have to, if it's big conduit, then I'm gonna need this many 4-inch EMT 45s, which are not cheap. And that doubles up on couplings. You got a coupling on both sides. The same thing with all thread hangers, and all thread rod. I mean, someone has to figure out how much material it's got to take to do this, and then request for it to be purchased and delivered, or for somebody to go and get it. And that's a huge part of what an electrician does, to be able to assess the installation and produce a parts list. Well, that's exactly what you're doing as a helper, is looking at tracking how much parts it takes to put something together. And after a certain amount of time, electricians that are running on their own, they can walk that route and then go to the Connex or go to the parts trailer and load up a box full of all the stuff that they need, and ballpark it within a reasonable amount, to where they don't have to sit and count out every single one of them. It turns into a really fast operation. Go grab the material, go out there and slam it in. But those are the sorts of skills and stuff that you pick up for your life as a tradesman while you're still a helper. And like to what Fascist Friend was talking about with the cleaning up of stuff, it makes if you're the guy that has to clean up the wire clippings, sweep up the wire clippings off the floor, you know that it takes time in order to do that. So a lot of electricians, because they've been in that position as a helper, having to sweep up the wire clippings or the broken pieces or the cut pieces of pipe, scrap pipe, they're a lot tidier about the jobs that they do. They don't leave that stuff laying around everywhere. One, it's a trip hazard, but two, you get a nice clean area to work in, and you don't have to do a lot of the aftermath, the cleanup phase after the fact. You can get on to running some more conduit somewhere else, pulling some wires somewhere else, kind of like what Otis was saying, where you just come down off the ladder, throw it on the truck and go. That phase is gone. It's over with. So, and because of the progression that people go through to get from helper status to apprentice or electrician status, we have been the helper, which means we have had to pick it up. We have had to set out the material. And so when we've got somebody that's working with us that's in that position, and for Otis it would be a roofer that's up there, and he's been the ground guy before, which means that he knows whether or not the ground guy is screwing off or doing a good job.
Absolutely.
Everybody on the crew knows whether or not you're doing a good job, because they have done your job before. And I'm a firm believer that that's the only way to progress in the field is to have done some of that stuff yourself with your own two hands. And it's that guy that spends 45 minutes or an hour cleaning up a room that should only take him 15. It's like everybody knows, like, you're not fooling anyone. And that, unfortunately, like Fash was saying, there are gatekeepers, man, and they don't want you to move forward, to take that next step, because they're worried about their job. But at the same time, there are guys out there that will do anything that they can in order to help you out. Like the second gentleman that Fascist Friend worked for. And a lot of times the difference between whether or not you get stiff-armed and whether or not you get that little boot in the ass, hand on the shoulder, and guided down the path towards the next set of steps in your career, that's the difference between whether or not you're the good ground guy or you're screwing off. And it's not a mystery. Everybody knows because they've done it. And as a helper, I have to say, performing above, and this is a thing I wanted to touch on last episode. We never really got to it, but as a helper, performing above your job title is part of your job title. So you can't expect. And you saw a little example of this where they let Fascist Friend cut a weld that he hadn't done before and wasn't necessarily well versed in. But generally on these trade jobs, they're not going to put you in a higher position if they don't know whether or not you can do it. It's a lot of responsibility, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But the actual act of being a helper requires you to do a lot of things that electricians have to do. And the idea is that show me you can do the job before I promote you into that job, if that makes good sense.
Yeah, it's a testing period for the next step up.
Yep, and a lot of guys, unfortunately, will take that opportunity. They do not recognize it as the opportunity that it is. Instead, they're like, here I'm being forced to do this electrician's job. I'm not, I'm not getting paid to be an electrician, and they let it, crawl all over them. They walk around with a chip on their shoulder, like my electrician's not doing jack, and here I am having to do his work for him. And it's not to say that there aren't electricians that'll take advantage of helpers, but I mean, treating that stuff like that's your opportunity. That's your opportunity to prove that you're capable of some of this stuff. And, at the same time, getting worked for a long time and held down in a position when you, by all rights, you already should have been promoted. It's a really difficult thing to judge. But no, you don't want to work for somebody that's going to lock you in a position where you deserve to move up, and other people would have, but you're not in the good old boy club. That's entirely different from performing above what your position is for a sufficient amount of time for the people above you to gain a level of comfort and trust in your ability to perform those job tasks. Like for Fastest Friend, he's got huge pieces of equipment. If anything goes wrong, some of that stuff, if it breaks, people can really get hurt. And the same thing goes for Doppler. I mean, you're working in a plant. If things go wrong, really, the complications and the consequences of mistakes are it's a pretty high price to pay. In the stuff that I do, people blow up. People blow up, things blow up. And gaining that level of trust to allow somebody to do it is tantamount to putting their life in your hands. So you have to have a little bit of understanding, and just to relate it back to even what Otis was talking about. When you let a guy get up there and do a job for you, I mean that amount of money that we're talking about, where you can make a profit if you don't have a lot of waste, and if you don't waste a bunch of time. Letting somebody get in there and do that stuff on your behalf, as somebody that's a little higher up the food chain, letting somebody get in there and do that on your behalf, you're gambling with your pocketbook. These guys they can cost you a lot of. I mean, from a small business perspective, they can cost you a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it even goes to the safety aspect. I don't know how familiar everybody is with safety ratings and things like that. And we'll get into safety probably in the second half, but these companies they engage in contracts. There's a lot of legalese that's involved with companies coming together in order to do projects, and safety is not just a thing that people say. It's a huge component of the ability to do business, having the meaning that whether you know it or not, your company has a safety rating. It's based on your amount of reportable accidents, whether they be near misses, lost time, things like that.
Or worse.
Or worse, yeah, deaths, people being
Dismembered.
dismembered, sure. Yeah, so when you walk out into the job, we talked about it with Otis and how there's money involved here. And we've talked about it just from the bonus side of it, or from the success of a small business. So you can cost them money. Hey, if the power plant shuts down because somebody screwed up, there's real trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But with Fascist Friend, people are depending on that equipment to work, and so the whole chain of logistical chain shuts down if some of this stuff breaks. But in the middle of all of that stuff, that across the entire board, one of the reasons safety is so important is because with this safety rating, it affects whether or not you're able to bid contracts. You cannot bid jobs if your safety rating is too low. And to the same extent, while the job is ongoing, if you're not cautious about how you handle yourself, and you go out there and you make dumb mistakes and you get yourself hurt, and it's going to get reported as recordable, which is going to affect the safety rating of the company, which can cause them to be in breach of contract. That means your whole company gets thrown off the job. You just think about that for a second. Your behavior and how you handle yourself on site and how seriously you take safety, your willingness to cut a corner and do something that's risky and get yourself hurt, it's not just going to get you sent home in stitches or a trip to the hospital. You're really running risk of costing everyone else their income, everyone else on that job.
Yep. And after the break we're coming up on, boys, we will tell you about how we disregarded everything that Dave just harped on and almost got ourselves killed.
Well, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I can't wait to hear what you guys got.
All right, but anyways, let's run down the list. Dave, do you have anywhere people can find you anymore, or did you get caught in that giant
Nope.
ban?
It was a massive purge. I'm on the Discord if you guys got any.
Okay, so Dave's on the Discord. Doppler, are you anywhere people can find you?
Oh, just right here, man. I'm not worried about any of that other stuff.
Yep, I feel it. Fash, what about you? You in the same boat?
Same boat. I will be joining Post probably next week, but updates will come. So I'm
Yep.
gonna pull a Papa John on this. Stay tuned.
Yep, so, I am also in the same boat. I think I still have a Twitter, but I don't have time to social media. So the only place you can really find me when I am engaging with people online is here in the Discord. So I dropped the link to the Discord in the chat. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll get into our favorite OSHA violation I almost died stories. So stay tuned, boys. We'll see you in a few minutes. And we are back. Thank you for sticking with us, boys. And for the second half, Blade was harping on. Not Blade, Dave, sorry. Got my shows mixed up there for a second. Dave was harping on safety and why it's so important. And now we're going to give you instances where we forgot that key point and we almost got ourselves killed. So let's start with Dave. You are the safety harper, so tell us why it's so important to you and what specific instance really drilled it into your head.
I'll start with one of the first ones that really set the pace for me. Now, don't take this to mean that after this one incident, I had my head wrapped around it. But as a young man, I was working on a crew doing a hospital. Had real high ceilings in this. It's new construction, and we're no ceiling grid or anything like that. We were running conduit racks. They're mounted to the concrete slab above. So I'm on a scissor lift, running, EMT conduit 3/4 on all 1/4 inch all thread, back to back strut, pipe on top, pipe on bottom, strut straps, all that good stuff. And it hadn't been but a few days where I'd gotten my first mandatory harness training, where they teach you, how to put the harness on, acceptable points of connection to tie off your lanyard so that you're secured inside of the scissor lift.
Mm-hmm.
All that good stuff. And one of the horror stories that they make sure that every new guy gets to hear is what happens when you hit the end of your lanyard, and it's that jerk, that's sudden jerk at the bottom. If you don't have your harness on good and tight and situated, we'll just say that the story goes, a gentleman lost one of the family jewels right on out the coin purse. So needless to tell you, I made sure I had mine on cinched very well and positioned appropriately so as not to suffer such a cruel fate.
Most of those harnesses are set up so there is literally about a 3-inch pocket where you can have the twig and berries. And if they're not there, you're going to have a bad day.
Uh-huh.
Step 1 is to strap the leg pieces around. Step 2 is to untuck and reposition until you know that if I do fall, the straps are not grabbing the boys to stop me.
Yeah, if anyone out there doesn't know what degloving is, Google what degloving is.
Don't do it.
But the thing is, if you actually took a fall with a harness and you're not strapped up nice and tight, you're looking about degloving something that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of a setup because I was scared to death that I had to put this harness on. I did not want this to happen to me. So I'm walking around like I'm cinched in, gentlemen, just about as well as I can be. And so I'm all the way up on this lift. And I'm, again, real young guy, 18 years old, running hard and fast as I can to just, produce. Because I've mentioned it many times before, and I'm sure you guys will hear it again. I was very blessed to work with some outstanding professionals and very knowledgeable and also very willing to teach a young cat like me, belligerent little shit that I was. So I'm trying to keep pace with them, which is absolutely impossible because I don't have the years of experience, the trained emotions and all that stuff. These guys can do it in their sleep. So I'm trying to keep up with them, failing miserably. And I'm fully extended on this lift all the way up, a good 30 feet in the air, 40 feet in the air. And I can just barely not reach the top of the strut rack to tighten this strut strap. And I'm on the scissor lift on the slab, fully extended with the exterior wall probably about, 2 or 3 feet away from me. And it's just bare metal stud. Exterior wall studs generally it's a lot thicker than some of your interior stuff. So I felt relatively safe I mean, I didn't think the lift was going to fall over or anything, but it does have a lot of sway. And once people don't understand, once you get a scissor lift so high up in the air, fully extended like that, there's a little rock in the boat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't reach the strap. So what do I decide to do? Okay, I'm up in the middle rung of the guardrail.
Oh,
Now,
no.
Oh.
No, brother, no.
Don't do that.
So I'm up on the middle rail, and it's giving me hell. I can reach it, but I'm having to fight it. And I jerk on my lanyard. Yep, I'm good and strapped out. All right, well, look around. There's nobody watching. And so I'm up on the top rung now. I got something to brace me. I'm holding on to the rack, and the rack is up there. So I'm standing. I'm trying to hurry and get this thing done because I don't want anybody to come around the corner and get me in trouble. So I'm hurrying, trying to do it, and my hand slipped. And I didn't fall right away, but the lift, because the lift had sway in it, when I went to brace myself, the pressure I put against the lift, it rocked to the side, and when it rocked back, I went over the bow. I went over the rail, boys.
Oh,
No.
damn.
Right.
I went over the rail, and I'm just gonna tell you now that survival instinct to reach out and grab that exterior stud with my bare hand in order to try and prevent me from falling only lasted like a split of a second. I've still got a scar on the inside of my thumb where my dumb ass reached out there and grabbed that sharp metal stud to try and oh yeah. I mean, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. All I could think about was just being a pancake, you know, a blood splat, and go get the fucking mop and get Dave up off the floor. So that reaction, instant instinct, just hand reached out. I grabbed a hold of it. Oh God, you know, and the longest couple seconds of your life. They talk about riding a bull. I don't know what it's like for those boys, but I can tell you, like the amount of things that went through my head as I plummeted towards the slab. It felt like a lifetime. And so the first thing was like, oh shit, am I tied off? It's like, okay, yes, this is the rapid fire. Okay, so,
Yeah.
oh shit, am I tied off? Oh God, there's a stud, there's a wall. You know, don't fall. And then let that go because before I lose a finger. And then before my lanyard caught, because if you're not familiar with these safety lanyards,
How long was your tether?
fully extended, probably about 12 feet.
Oh, shit. You got
What?
12 foot worth of
12-foot
fall?
tether?
In a
it's
scissor lift?
Was
Yeah,
it
yeah.
retractable?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The way that these tethers are set up, these lanyards are set up, is it's accordioned.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about before you rip the accordion out to slow
Oh,
your
no.
fall. What was the initial length of it?
I don't know, probably about 8 feet,
Oh.
maybe 10 feet, something like that.
That's still long as hell for being in a scissor lift, brother. Damn.
Yeah. I mean,
Usually,
we got
usually they're like 4-footers,
6 foot for
yeah.
fixed lanyards. And then
And then they have accordions on
retractables.
each ends, so probably once you rip them out, they end up being about, 10 to 12
Well, that-
foot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Fully pulled apart, 10 to 12 feet.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what that's how that worked out for me. Was so it's oh shit, am I tied off? Oh shit, can I stop falling by grabbing this thing? Oh shit, let it go before you lose your thumb. Oh shit, is this thing gonna catch? And then when I finally did catch it, and you could feel it to start popping to release the
To
stored
slow you
energy.
down.
Yeah, the stored energy of me plummeting to fucking earth. I was just going, oh God, when I hit the bottom, please, boys, still be where I left you. And luckily for me, there I was, hanging in the air. I'm swinging, just all by my lonesome, and I had no choice but to just ask for help. Help! Here I am, dangling from this thing, and
Yeah.
I had to
And
wait.
You were lucky that the scissor lift didn't come down with
Yeah.
that type of side forks.
Mm-hmm. No.
Wow.
No. Uh-huh.
Yeah, especially you said you were maxed out on it, so
Oh yeah.
you're so
Not-
lucky that the scissor lift didn't decide to go timber and end up somewhere on top of you.
Uh-huh.
Because I can only imagine how much it hurt to drop but then
Oh,
to
yeah.
drop and then to feel that slow tip as the scissor lift went off balance and you catch that other 30 foot of uninterrupted fall. Damn, brother.
I gotta tell you, it was an eye-opening experience. I'll tell you that I did not do that anymore. That was lesson learned, especially when all those guys that I respected and looked up to, one of them had to come cut me down, like bring a ladder, a 10-foot ladder, and climb up it, break out the pocket knife, and cut the lanyard so that I could climb on down. And of course, break time. You know what I got? I got the treatment.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
had to go cut Dave down. But you're glad you're wearing your harness, aren't you? Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. So, close call there, gentlemen. Wear your harness. Wear it properly. Make sure you're clipped off. Be sure there's a little give in your lanyard and that your lanyard's working properly. And stay off the top of the. Don't climb on on the scissor lift. I was happy to be able to kiss the ground again, and not at full velocity. So
Yeah, now that's one thing about working at heights. They have ridiculous rules. So like some sites, it's if you're over 6 feet, you're gonna be tied off, which makes no sense because even a 4 foot lanyard with your stretch and with your safety brake coming out
Yeah,
of it,
there's
like,
no-
everything, and then your own height, where your D-ring is on the back of your harness. Like no matter what, like being
Yeah.
over 6 feet, you're
At-
hitting the ground.
At 6 foot,
Unless-
you're hitting the ground.
Yeah, and then like that's only some site standard. The law here is 10 feet, and even that is like you're most likely hitting the ground in 90% of situations. But still, you definitely like when you're up there and you look around, you're like, oh shit, yeah, that's when it's time to go get your harness. And if you think, oh, I got good balance or this or that, it's like, if you're at a risky height, tough spot, you don't have guardrails around you or God knows what, it's worth it. They can be uncomfortable, I know, but you don't want to take a fall, man. Like there's nothing worth it at your job that you should end up in the hospital with broken legs or end up dead. Like it ain't fucking worth it. For what, money? No.
Yep.
Like there's no reason to end up going and hurting yourself. So I know like we do like to go after people who are over the top about safety because they can be very stupid and counterproductive. But when it comes to your health, I mean, at the end of the day, the company, they're just there to use you to make money, right?
Mhm.
You're the one who's gonna have to either explain to your wife why you went and did something fucking stupid that you knew better, and now you're gonna be off work for months. Maybe you can't work again, or maybe you won't be there to explain to her why you're not there, right? Like none of it's worth it. So that's one big thing. Working at heights, I take that very, very seriously because I do a lot of high work, and yeah, it's just it's very serious stuff, and
Yeah,
you don't want to get injured with it. You don't need to risk it. Suck it up. Put the harness on. Make sure that you're tied off safely. Just what do you got? A few hours in your day that you gotta wear the harness, whatever.
Mhm.
But look after yourselves out there, boys.
Yeah, 100%. And on your note about like the safety guys, it is a joke where they walk around looking for safety violations to justify their job, and the guy who's in charge of safety usually catches a pretty bad nerd rap. The uptight guy. At the same time, like there are a lot of dudes out there that have had the near death experience. So remember you don't necessarily know how many times somebody may have brushed death when they're talking to you about, hey dude, put your fucking harness on, man.
Yeah, when I bitch about safety guys, it's because I am a roofer, and on like jobs where the county's literally has a guy posted up on our job, and he's like, "Hey, you have to have your hard hat on," You know, I'm a roofer. I don't need a fucking hard hat. I'm the highest guy on the job. That's
Yeah,
the kind of
exactly.
safety
That's-
bullshit that I bitch about. When it comes
That's-
to I'm
that's the
3
type of thing
stories
that's
up
silly.
and someone's like, hey man, why do I need my harness on? Well, it's because it's not an 8-foot draw fall if you slide down this roof and go off. You know, something that you might roll an ankle at best, break an ankle at worst if you land funny. It's you're coming off this and it's 30 feet to the ground, and at best you're maimed, at worst you're dead. That's not the kind of safety to joke about.
No. No, it is a little. It can get a little ridiculous. Some of the stuff that they want you to do as far as safety goes. The OSHA jackass is a meme for a reason, but like what you're talking about, there's no reason to die for it.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, you know, Dave explaining that, you know, if you have an OSHA certified scaffold, you don't need to be tied off at 6 foot. But because on the one job I was literally riding a scaffold the entire time, but it wasn't OSHA certified, so it was like, hey, you need to be strapped off because you're on a 6 foot scaffold so you can be waist high at this 10-foot eve. And I was like, no, I'm not going to put a harness and wear a hard hat because I'm on top of a scaffold that I can literally jump off of at 30 years old and not hurt myself. I think I'll be okay. It's completely different than tying off to a scissor lift that I'm taking 30 feet in the air, and if I do go over the side, that harness is the only thing saving me from, at best, a life of eating through a tube or having my wife wipe my ass for the rest of my life. You know, there is a definite line in bullshit safety and use common sense because this will kill you safety.
Yeah, a lot of that. Oh, you got to tie off, and then it's like you literally have nowhere to tie off to.
Skyhook.
It's like yeah, it's like I could tie off like I don't know, like this spot at my feet on the thing I'm standing on, and then it's like, well, what the fuck does that do? Like it's just completely pointless. It's like, well, technically you're over the 10 feet. And it's like, yeah, but if I'm tying off below myself, that's like I'm gonna fall an extra few feet. Like it's nonsense. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That actually brings me into one of the instances of, oh shit, I almost died, that literally happened at 9:45 this morning. And I only know that because I got off the roof right after it happened. I put a dip in. I sat down on the edge of the trailer and I let the shakes get out of my system because I almost went down hard today, boys.
Not good. Not good.
Yeah. And, you know, down here in Florida, it's coming up on summertime. That means that in the morning, the dew has everything wet because it's already 110% humidity, and it will be like that for the rest of the summer. Not to mention, it was sprinkling on and off, so the metal roof is wet. We literally had to put the last 5 boots on to finish this roof off, and then we could get our paycheck and we could go home. But somebody needed to get on the roof and do it. And when it comes to stuff like that, usually you send, you know, the stupid kid because you don't care if he dies. But on crews that actually value human life, you send someone who halfway knows what they're doing and can improvise if they get into an OSHA situation. For our crew, that is me. So I Spider-Man my way up to the peak. I drop in the anchor for my harness. I tie off, and I put the first 3 boots on. And these are, you know, out of every roof you see, you have little PVC pipes that are drains for the toilets, drains for the sink, you know, vents for the kitchen exhaust fan. Everything that needs to be vented out. They can't just sit in your attic. You have a little
they got-
pipe that comes out of your roof.
A
All right.
million little things to trip over.
Yes. So I am putting the little rubber boots we put over those to make sure they don't leak. And I get to the last one, and where I had my anchor, it's probably 15 feet to the left of where my anchor is. So I have 15 feet of slack to swing down on a 16-foot long roof panel. So I'm out there, I've got good footing. I go to start putting the boot on, I get the caulk on, make sure it's not going to leak. Put my first screw in, I go to put my second screw in, and my screw gun slips. I get a little off balance, which means I fall over. And had I not been tied off, I literally 3 stories up in the air right now.
God.
Had I not
Yep.
been tied off, I would have bounced because it was a 2-tier roof. You had it's on pylons. So pylons is the first story. The second story has its own little roof, and then a third story on top that has a different roof level. I was on the 3rd story roof. Had I not been tied off, I slide off that 3rd story. I get a solid bounce off the 2nd story, and then right down on the ground level.
You're going home in a bucket.
What type of ground you talking about? Like pavement or grass or?
Oyster shell.
Oh yeah, like when you hit a shrapnel.
Yeah, literally crushed
What
up.
is that?
So they had because it's on the beach where I was working.
Oh, okay.
So instead of trying to grow grass out there in the sand, they had crushed up oyster shell to give it like a nice little, almost like concrete, but not really concrete feel, all done up in a fancy design with a couple palm trees.
Huh.
So
Sounds like a terrible thing to fall on.
yes, crushed up oyster shells is what I would have broke my fall. But luckily, I was tied off properly. So when I swung that 15 feet and ended up at the bottom of the 3rd story, looking over, trying to catch my breath because I literally thought I was about to die.
Uh-huh.
You know, I gained my composure. I replanted my feet. I tightened everything on my harness just a little bit more. I finished screwing off that boot, and I went down.
Yep.
And I sat on the trailer, and I was like, whew, that was exciting.
Do you think people think that that life flashing before your eyes is a joke? I mean, it happened really fast. It is not a joke.
It is not a joke. And oh my goodness. You know,
Oh, I am.
every once in a while
Yeah,
you
I-
do need that little kick of adrenaline, you know, just so you can remember how it feels.
Yeah, there's a shit that'll have you calling your old lady, like, "I love you, babe." You dial your parents next. "I'm sorry, I was such a shitty kid."
Oh,
Uh-huh.
but
But
no.
yeah-
So the one I actually wanted to tell was, you know, kind of on the other end of that. It's literally, we were out in the middle of nowhere putting up a red iron barn for a guy. And we had a junior forklift operator who just happened to raise up too high as he was trying to back out of this building and bend one of our rafters out. He hooked on it with the top of his forks, bent it out of whack. We couldn't leave it like that. We had to unhook it. So we got the forks. We got the weight supported once we unbolted this thing from the post on the side. But we knew as soon as I took this last bolt out that it was going to rock. And it was going to rock right into the only solid place I could put my ladder. So at this point, I knew that, hey, I take this bolt out, it's going to knock my ladder out from under me. And I'm gonna fall roughly 13 feet down to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, leave the bolt in.
It couldn't do it, brother. It had to come out, and there was no other way. No other way. And again, when you have to do something dangerous, instead of sending the stupid guy that could actually, possibly die, you send the guy who can only possibly get, maimed. Because maiming is better than death. And because the junior guy on our crew, I go to church with his mother every day, and I couldn't look his mother in the eye and know that I could have been on top of the ladder instead of him and still sleep at night. So I'm the guy on top of the ladder because the only other option is my dad. And I can't look my mom in the eye knowing that my dad got hurt because he did something I should have been doing.
Remember, boys, sometimes there is a reason why you don't get to do the fun stuff, and it's not because we don't want you to have fun. It's because we don't want you to get dead
Yeah.
or broken.
Yeah, so here I am. I take the last bolt out, and sure enough, it kicks my ladder, and I take a... Luckily, I had the option in nice, soft, uncut grass, probably about 3 foot high, that kind of cushioned my fall. But I landed flat on my back, and every ounce of oxygen in my lungs left my body. And while I wasn't actually injured, holy shit, it hurt.
Oh, I bet. I said giving up the ghost, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that don't sound fun.
And that funny, I think I can recreate the sound. It sounds something like... I made that sound for probably 5 minutes as my lungs tried to remember how to intake oxygen into my body.
Fucking sucking air. Yeah,
But those are...
Please help me. Cannot breathe. Literally, I can't breathe.
Yeah, those are the two most recent. And then, of course, doing like metal roofing. Every month or so, I'll get a cut deep enough that requires stitches. And the young guy on the crew, he cuts himself. It feels like every job that he needs to go get stitches at the ER. But those are the 2 times most recently that I could have and probably should have died if I was not halfway conscious of everything I do right now could literally kill me. So safety is not a joke, boys. Take it. Take
it's
it.
not.
Take it seriously.
What you're talking about there with like the helper that gets himself cut on every job, we see that stuff too, and
Oh yeah, especially
So,
you're
I mean,
talking
what-
about dealing with all thread. All thread, I fucking hate it because every corner of that, but it feels like, all you have to do is cut the threads so that they're threads. You don't need to get them razor sharp. I don't know how many times I've accidentally brushed up against all thread and I started bleeding.
Oh yeah, going up a ladder without your hard hat on and catch one right in the dome.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun stuff. We had a kid that was working on one of our jobs, basically a new dude, helper, no real experience in the trade, and this guy would just get the most ridiculous types of accidents, where he'd run scissor lifts. I think he got moved from like 4 different jobs before he finally wound up on our site. But just the most ridiculous ways that he would break stuff or get himself hurt, just not paying attention to what he was doing. And when you said that about the helper that get himself cut on every job, it's actually one of the reasons why you might get treated like shit is if you develop a habit of not paying attention to what you're doing and putting yourself at risk, getting yourself hurt, or putting others at risk. This dude was doing stuff like he cut his hand wide open with a razor knife, cutting zip ties. Like we've got
Now, that's very common.
we got dikes. You got dikes in your pocket. Why are we using a razor knife to cut zip ties off of data cables? I mean, a little bit of common sense here. There's no reason to be using a razor knife for that. OSHA's gone out of their way to prevent us from having razor knives at all. But it's because of people like this. And the only reason I threw this story out there was just because, to the earlier point, yeah, repeated safety infractions can cause your company to go out of business, and it cost everybody a paycheck. So if you become a habitual, I hurt myself, you're apparently not learning, and maybe you're just not cut out for this. And we talked about not everybody, you guys deserve better than flipping burgers, and that's true. But if you're not going to pay attention to what it is that you're doing and the hazards around you, you may not be cut out for construction work or trades work. So be aware that that's the sort of thing. Not only do we take it seriously, we'll run your ass off for it if you don't.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I forgot because, we're talking about times that we brushed death, but I can't tell you how many times I have hollered at the new guy because he's spinning around, and I don't know if anyone else has ever played with metal roofing, metal siding. All right, it's 26 gauge metal. Any edge on it is literally a razor blade. So if you start swinging it around all carefree, when you have other people within 10 feet of you, any little nick, it's not like, oh, I bumped you with this, sorry. You bump me with a piece of metal, even if it's just a little piece of trim, every edge on it's a razor blade. So I have scars
it's not good.
because other people weren't paying attention to what they were doing. And nothing makes me angrier than starting to bleed because someone else is an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I worked for the dude named Sparky. Guy's probably in his 50s. Been doing it his whole life. He was a higher up leadership type guy. It was a project where everybody had come in for the weekend from projects all over in order to help push the schedule along. It was scheduled overtime, and we're trying to make dates. And I was in the room with this dude, very, very knowledgeable, old leather guy, a lot of experience. And I watched him lick his pointer and pinky finger and reach out and touch the bare lugs between two phases of a live electrical panel to see if it was on. And I'm not even kidding.
Did it work?
Is Sparky still with us?
Well, and that's the thing is, in reality, the way that the mechanics of electricity works, you can conduct electricity without exploding. You can do it. All right, it's possible. The safety aspects of it is as long as you're not grounded, you're fine. So, but if you get a pinhole in your boot, then there's a chance that you become the ground. And even with a large level of experience, and this guy knew he'd done it a million times, but he did it right there in front of me, in the same room as me, with a few steps away from me. And if he had blown up, it would have got me too. And that just goes to like what you're talking about with people who aren't paying attention. They just make a hard left turn with a long piece of sheet metal on their shoulder and cut you wide open. This dude literally could have been it for me. The arc blast off of a panel like that, because this guy was thought he was tough shit, and I've done it a million times. Reach out there and do it. And when people don't take their safety seriously and their own well-being, they're not looking out for you. So that's a quick way to get going too. Not just because you put yourself at risk, but because we're all in this together, and little mistakes, carelessness on anybody's part can send one of us that's doing our job.
Yeah, and I think I'm at the low end of the spectrum for other people, being able to majorly hurt me because somebody does something stupid around me and I get a cut that may end up needing stitches. Somebody does something stupid around Fash and they drop a 3-ton piece of, a 3-ton blade on him because they were being idiots.
Sorry.
Or somebody screws around with Dave and now not only are they locked into a 220, but Dave is locked in as well to a 220, and no one else is going to come knock them off until they stop buzzing. So, I have it easy on this stance.
I'm looking a little more than 3 ton, maybe 10, 20-ton equipment.
Yeah, shit you don't limp
Yeah.
away from.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the small scale of what I'm with. On
Can
the
kill you
large
dead if you
scale, like the large scale, especially like working out in the mines, them trucks, if you get in the wrong spot and you're driving in the mine and a haul truck ends up hitting a light vehicle, they don't feel it. Trucks themselves are 400 ton,
Mm.
and if they're loaded, they got an extra like 350 to 400 ton capacity loaded in them. So they don't notice that they're going over anything. And same thing with even the large bulldozers. Like we actually had a case a couple months ago, and it was shift change, and somebody parked the pickup truck in the wrong spot on shift change, and people in it, and they ended up parked right next to where another dozer was coming, and the dozer ran right over the truck, didn't even know it was there.
Mm.
And
Damn.
like, yeah, like it is very, very scary shit, man. Like, yeah, I've seen a lot of rule changes in my time in this industry just due to the fact that there's been a lot of fatalities.
All right,
And it's
but
not something to take lightly. Yeah.
sorry, I kind of monopolized a lot of that time. Fash.
No.
It is your time.
Absolutely.
Me and Dave went. Let's hear your stories.
Well, I don't have a lot of near serious injury stories, so I'm glad you guys were able to fill a lot of that. So, there's one that flashes in my mind, and this was one from a long time ago. I was out in the mine. We were working on a large hydraulic mining shovel. So it's basically a shovel's just a larger excavator. It's just that an excavator, take your arm, reach out in front of you, and then think about scooping sand. You'd be scooping a handful towards yourself. Now, that's what an excavator is. Now, if you scooped away from yourself, palm outwards, that's how a shovel scoops, except what they do is they open up on the backside, and then they dump out the back. So, that's the difference between an excavator and a shovel.
All right.
So, the shovels are a lot larger, they have a higher capacity, all that good stuff. Some of them are hydraulic. The ones that are hydraulic run on diesel engines, and they have just all kinds of hydraulic pumps and yada yada yada. And then the other ones, the electrics, are the very large ones. They're the high capacity, and what they run on is a giant cable that's run 14,000 volt, and
Ooh.
they run on electric motors. So, and those cables run all over the mine. So there's cable crossings, all kinds of stuff like that. So, the hydraulics, they're a bit smaller, but I'm on one of these. So you have your boom, and then your stick, and then your bucket, right? That's your three parts coming off the machine that makes up basically the arm that does the work. So I'm on the top of this boom, and it was all built by scaffolding to get up there. It's all the aluminum independent piece scaffolding, so you can build custom anything you want, not your standard like aluminum frame and wood planks or nothing like that. Like, it's all just slapped together with just the aluminum. I don't even know exactly how to explain it well, sorry, but anyway, so it's basically this tower going up to this sucker, and it's about 35-40 feet in the air to get up to this boom. It's just this tower to get up there, and then we're working inside of the boom because these are pretty large pieces, and doing some welding repairs inside for any of the cracking and separation that you have on some of the factory welds. Well, we gotta drag our welding cables up there, and our extension cord, and our air line, and all this type of shit. So, you lower down a rope, you hook your lines up, and then you pull them up.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this type of scaffolding, because it's all just completely built piece by piece, it all has to be done to a certain standard. It has to be done by journeyman scaffolders. They have to be fully certified, and
Sure.
once it's done, they have to put their safety tags on. Like, this is all heavily regulated type of stuff.
Yeah, sign your name to it.
So I look and I'm like, all right, good, scaffolds here. I mean, these mines are very, very strict with their safety to start with. So I'm like, oh well, this should be good. Not a problem, eh? Thing is, the welding cables are quite heavy, and then you got an airline, and then you got this. Or say you're pulling up a bag of tools or whatever it is. Like, you might be looking at 30, 40, sometimes close to 80 pounds. Depends what you're pulling. And the thing is, the further up it gets, when you're pulling cables, the heavier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So what they end up doing with this scaffolding is, you know, you get your mid rail and your high rail. Now that keeps you safe inside your scaffolding. But once you climb up the ladder, you need a way to get onto it. So they have just a rotating top rail. And it's just lifted up, falls down. So I'm leaning over that rail, pulling up all of the stuff on a rope. And when they put the hinge that rotating rail was on, they didn't quite set it so that it had overlap over where it rests on the horizontal.
Oh, damn.
So it was, so when I leaned on it with my weight and I had a bunch of stuff on a rope, it went, and it was just at the point where it slipped down. It slipped down on the inside, and it just went whomp and just fell out. And I went from standing, you know, like leaning over a railing, resting against my rib cage and my gut, pulling up a good bit of weight, to all of that gone. And I immediately dropped forward, and it was, thankfully, like both hands on the rope. Thankfully, I had the core strength, and I wasn't lifting anything heavier. I was able to stop myself as it like jerked my body downwards.
Oh yeah.
Without
Oh,
Asshole.
God.
Yeah, asshole puckered up, fucking heart in your throat. Yeah, I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
because I was, I would have been about 5 pounds of weight away from just straight off the edge.
Just-
Like I said, 35, 40 feet.
Just-
straight down,
just
straight into the
following-
frozen dirt.
Following
Yeah.
all your tools right back down. So you'd have something real nice and soft to land on when you got down there.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I, that's the scariest thing I've ever run into.
Well, I still think that rate's right up around a 10 on the oh shit scale. Even if you
yeah.
didn't go all the way over. Knowing
Yeah.
what would have happened if you did, that
Well,
you know,
that's the
you
thing
say
that, like,
that's the only time. That's a pretty solid time, brother.
Yeah, but like with that type of scaffolding and all that, like there's no harnesses or nothing up there, right? Because the scaffolding.
Oh,
is
yeah,
built
'cause
with
they're
these
safe.
things to
Yeah,
access,
they're-
right. So,
Yeah,
but I mean that's the thing, is that you don't, no matter what. Sure, the tag was on. It was done by other certified tradesmen. Don't ever just take that type of shit for granted, though. Never assume that somebody has done their job right. Never assume the job is safe. Always make sure that you look, because I could have looked and said, "Holy Jesus, this drop bar, I mean, it doesn't have a lot. Like, it should be overhanging where it lies on instead of landing, you know, on the center of the other piece of scaffold there, the other scaffold pipe. It shouldn't be landing at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock. It should be like 3 inches past it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Instead, it landed so close to that when I put weight on it, it was able to shift and roll down around that pipe, and then it drops. And
Well, you make
it's
a
pointless after that. So
Well, you make an important point right there, I think, just in the sense that there's kind of like two different, maybe three different factors in all this. Like one is like you don't want to be careless, right? Because the carelessness and ignoring safety regulations can get you in a lot of trouble. I mean, it can get hurt real fast. But then, in addition to that, you've got following the safety regulations and doing the things that you're supposed to do and being attentive. You can still have something go terribly wrong, even if you do everything exactly right. So so it's don't be negligent in your own personal safety and the safety of others, and because it can get you hurt. Pay attention to the things that you're doing and do them the right way, and even still, even if everything's done exactly right, you may find yourself in one of those positions where, like, you have a split second to react, even if you've done everything right, and that stuff means the difference between whether you go home or you don't. So, you use the safety equipment because it's the first line of defense. Because even if you follow all the steps and you check all the boxes, that doesn't make you safe. That
you
just
know
means,
what?
yeah.
I'm gonna fight you on this one a little. Your first line of defense is what's in your fucking head. Your PPE, your harness, all that. That's your second line of defense. And that's the thing. If I would have stopped, looked around, assessed the scaffolding I was standing on, looked at the connections, looked at where things were lined up, then I would have been able to see that it was like, ooh, wait a minute, this wasn't built correctly. It might have a tag on it says that it's safe, but that bar should be moved. I should have been able to look at that and just said,
Oh, yeah.
like, ooh, that should be moved over a little further.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
come down on Team Fash on
Yeah.
this one. He is
No,
right.
I mean, we're on
Like,
the same.
never-
We're on the same page there.
never-
Yeah.
Yep.
We're on the same page there.
Never-
That's what I was saying. Is Don't be
never-
negligent. You don't take it for
Yeah.
granted. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
one
Never
question
take
I
for
do
granted
have
that
for-
somebody else has done their job right.
Yeah, one thing I do have for Fash. Did you read that tag and then go find somebody on lunchtime to have an intimate conversation with?
No, I carry on with my work. And the thing is,
That's
is,
that's
I
the
never-
leaf
I never
coming out in him.
mentioned
He probably would have apologized to the guy anyways.
Yeah, and like I'm saying, like, perfectly honest, I never mentioned it.
God.
I never mentioned it to supervision or anything like that. I did mention to the other guys that were standing on the scaffold with me, and they probably saw it. But like I said, I was young and I was inexperienced, and I never really had that in my head at the time to be like, okay, I found the dangerous condition. Unfortunately, by almost stepping in it, I need to make sure this is corrected. What I should have done immediately was say, oh, guys, like, look what the fuck just happened. Everyone, we're going down. Call the supervisor, get the scaffolders back out here, file a fucking near miss report. And it's like, I know people hate all the safety shit and they hate all the fucking. But the thing is,
Gotta do it,
like, the thing is, if somebody else the next shift, because we work around the clock. When I was done my 12-hour shift, there was another guy coming in, and he had to go and reach over
And do
there
the
with
same
rope
thing.
and pull his tools up. And if he fucking died because I didn't say anything, that's why they have the safety place. And I was young and I was inexperienced, and it's the old, oh, fucking guys, don't listen to the old guys. They're just sticks in the mud or trying to get out of work. It's like, no. You have to be able to gauge that type of stuff. So there are people who pull bullshit and they'll pull the safety card because they're lazy. But there are real safety issues out there. And you have to be able to assess that type of stuff. And don't be afraid to say no. I'm going to tell the story of confined space and me actually shutting job sites down because of extremely dangerous conditions that people were expected to go into in confined space, where it was imminent death, or if not death, maybe you're in the hospital because 90% of your body is burned. So I'm going to tell that story on another show. But thing is, yeah, when it's real, like, definitely go with the safety. Don't be afraid to say what you need to look after yourself and your coworkers.
When you bring up safety to a supervisor, a lot of people feel like you're the whistleblower or the tattletale or something like that. But I can promise you that anybody in that office, anybody up that chain, they would much rather stop what they're doing and get it corrected, or get you a taller ladder, or get you another harness, or have the scaffolding inspected. They would much rather do that than deal with the fallout of having to talk with their bosses and the owners and the general contractor about why we have people maimed or dead on the job site. So there's a little bit of, well, I'm not sure the right word is stigma, maybe. Of being the
stigma's
guy
the
that
right
says
word.
something. Not being the guy who says something, but kind of like what Bafash was talking about a second ago, like you noticing the problem and doing something to correct it can be the difference between whether somebody makes it home after you or not. Just because you made it out safe doesn't mean the next guy will. And that's what I meant when I said, you don't want to be careless about it, and that's step one. You pay attention to what's going on around you and do the best that you can to not do anything reckless. But two, do all the proper safety PPE things that they ask of you, because there is a procedure for all of it. And then three, if something still goes wrong, because sometimes it does, like you were saying a second ago, that scaffold was erected by somebody trained to do it. They had a tag on it that said it was safe. I mean, even following all of those steps, you can still find yourself in a oh shit, and you literally have a split second to save your life or not. Even if you do everything right, and I mean that's the nature of the business that we're in. It comes with a lot of risk. So knowing that, don't hesitate to save somebody else if you see something that's lacking in that department.
Absolutely. And boys, I think that is a great point to drop off. We had our funny oh shit, oh my god, I almost died stories, and I think we wrapped it up on
I don't
a
think we're
serious.
done yet.
Oh no, okay, let's keep it going then. Fuck it.
I have to interrupt you on this. Dave, you posted a picture. We have to cover it.
Oh yes, I forgot
Fuck,
about the
this
picture.
is bothering me.
I forgot about the
We have to cover
picture.
this before we go. Let's do some
You've
goofy
never
shit.
you've never seen this, Fash?
Oh, this is great.
Oh, what in God's name is this?
Okay, give me 2 seconds. I will put this up for everyone else to see too.
So I'm gonna say I'll just give you a quick little intro. When I first saw this picture, there's something that I really was shocked by. I saw on the job site for the first time, probably about a year ago. I was out at one of the sites, and standard tape measures. The guys get them right out of the tool crib. There's one on every workbench. And I looked at this one, and it's in feet. And I pulled it open, and instead of 1 through to 12, it went 1 to 10. And it was still a foot, but it was a 1 to 10 scale on an actual
Oh dear God.
inches to foot. And I'm, what in the... I was baffled. I didn't know what the hell this thing is. So when I'm looking at this picture that I don't know, Otis, do you have that loaded now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
up.
got it
They
now.
can see it now.
Yeah, so I was
trigger
looking
warning.
at this, and I was like, no, maybe one of these has got to be like this type of stupid, goofy fucking thing. And I did look it up. I guess that's an engineer's tape measure, which, whatever, doesn't matter. We can get into that another time with specialty tooling on an episode. But yeah, I was like, one of these has to be. This can't be just what it is. But please explain what we're looking at.
Well, it looks like the different brands of tape measure here. Just they've got them lined up. They got them lined up, and the tape measure pulled out, and you can kind of see the differences in the actual measurement. Like from start to 8 inches is not the same on a Klein as it is on like a Fat Max DeWalt. And then there's a third one that's some yellow off brand. I'm not sure what it is, but it doesn't match up either. So there are 3 different tape measures that measure 8 inches 3 different ways. So and this is the only acceptable reason to have to tear your work out, cut the pipe, and pull it back down out of the ceiling. and adjust it. If you don't have a completely flawed tape measure, one of these goof tape measures, there's no excuse for for making us do double work.
Ugh.
Now this
No.
picture is it's very deceptive because they have the tape measures themselves. The bodies are lined up even, but they have the ends all pulled out to different amount, right?
No, hang on.
No.
I'll take one of these out away so that I can.
I was gonna say
Play
what you
with
do
it.
though.
I can
is all
pull
you
up
do
a-
is just add a line onto it. If you just add in a vertical line, or sorry, a horizontal line of like what is 4 to 5 inches on the top one, and then you bring that down. You try to hit that with the 4 to 5 and the 4 to 5 and the others, and you'll see how out they are. It took me a little bit because I had to kind of do some comparison. You know, when you get those optical illusions and you can be deceived about the actual length of thing. Like if you look at the one in the middle, the yellow one, it's pulled out to almost 10 inches. The one at the top is 8. The one at the bottom is 8. And it's like, oh yeah, it's longer. Well, it's pulled out to almost 10. But is it 2 inches longer? And then you look. Well, not quite.
Alright,
And if you step
here's
back-
another one that has all of the 1 foot lines very close to lined up, and if you look at the ends of the tape,
Well, and this goes to this does the same thing as like levels. Levels are notorious for this. Like one, so you'll get electricians where you can the helper on the ground will ask for or the electrician will ask the helper on the ground for an offset and a conduit, and he'll measure it out level, and have the appropriate length, the appropriate amount of offset according to his tape measure, and you get the electrician gets it up in the ceiling and goes to try and fit it, and it's all kinds of out of square or all kinds of out of level in the wrong
Yep.
the wrong one. So it does take a little bit of time, and benders are the same way. Like especially for electricians, it's supposed to be a certain amount of take up. Like on a 3/4 inch EMT and a 3/4 bender, you got 6 inches of take up, and for a half-inch bender, half-inch EMT, it's 5 inches of take up. So,
Yeah.
and it's the way this is supposed to be, but all benders are a little bit different. But this is like on a whole nother level than
Oh, it's unacceptable.
yeah. So make sure what the tools you're working with are up to snuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, that's one thing I was going to ask you earlier there. Something you're talking about with doing the PVC bending.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
that do you know? Is that a similar like pipe bender that you'd use for like metal pipe bending? That's what I was
No.
assuming it'd be.
No, here I can go
Oh.
ahead. If you look over in, see, I think we got the. I'll pull the photo here in just a second, and I'll filibuster while I snatch this out. But
'Cause I was wondering about I was just like, I wonder if you just when you heat PVC, if you just were to use something similar to a metal pipe bender, if it would work the same way. But
so no, it doesn't. What you're basically working with is a 4-foot heater that's got a heating coil on the inside of it. Is just like you would have in your oven, and rollers on either end, and you plug that joker in and roll your conduit. And I'll get into this at some point. When we get
Yeah,
a little
sure.
more into the detail of like installations and things like that, because we will get there, boys, eventually
Okay.
one day.
yeah,
But yeah, you basically you plug the hot box is what you call it. You plug the hot box in, let it heat up real well, slap you some tape on both ends of your conduit, and you roll that piece of PVC, quarter turn, and slide it back and forth along the length of the pipe until you get that PVC heated until it's a little pliable. Kind of same way you would do cooking a spaghetti noodle. You want to get it where it's
oh yeah,
a little limber, where it'll bend, and you pull it out, throw it down into the hole. You got a bucket of cold water, some rags in there, and you slap your glue on it, slam it into the female or the male end of the conduit that's already there, and kind of just pull it into shape, and then you dress it with that rag and the cold water so that you've got you lock it in, shock it back into its rigid form. So it's totally different from like a hydraulic bender where you would do like say 4-inch EMT or rigid. That's a table
Okay.
bender. Those are
Yeah.
real big deals. This is more
Yep.
one of the down in the dirt deals.
No, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I was just curious about what type of tooling you actually use to bend PVC because I've never seen it done before. So,
Yep, you heat it.
alright, so I think we're done with absurd tape measures. Guys, buy quality tools. Make sure they're standardized.
Absolutely. And one rule that we always like, we are fine if the new guy brings his own tools, but every person on our job site, if we can help it, at least on our crew, uses the same brand of tape measure. And it is provided by us. We buy 20 footers and 35 footers, depending on what you're going to be measuring. But they are all the same brand.
It's a smart move. I mean, tape measures are not that expensive, so you want to make sure your work is consistent. That's a good move for the company to invest in.
Because we had a problem of, one guy brings his own tape, but his 5 1/4 that we need him to cut this panel at is a 1/2 inch off our 5 1/4. And I don't know if anyone has ever, heard the little anecdote of no one's ever invented a board stretcher yet. No
we
one's.
got wire stretchers and pipe
Yeah,
stretchers.
no,
I hear
no one's invented a panel stretcher either. So if it ends up a 1/2 inch short, you can't stretch that out. That one's scrapped. So when you tell the guy, "Hey, I need it cut at 5 1/4, or I need this one at 26.5 inches," but his 26.5 compared to yours is 25 3/4, that ain't gonna work out very well. So we all use the same manufacturer tape measure.
And pro tip,
my
pro tip
dad,
before we go.
my dad goes out and buy them.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, it's the only way to fly when you got all those guys working together and you have to have something uniform. Real quick pro tip before we go: these tape measures, a lot of them, if you'll pay attention, to all the green guys out there, if you'll pay attention, there's a lot of them have a little slop in the end, where you gain like an eighth to a quarter of an inch, depending whether you're pushing your tape measure up against something to measure, or whether you have it hooked on something and you're pulling towards you to measure. So that little bit of slop in the end of your tape where you've got your hook can make the difference in why your measurements don't come out the same depending on whether you're pushing your tape or pulling your tape on something. So just something to keep an eye out for.
And if you are buying an actual high quality, like a proper tape measure, the reason that slop is there is that it makes up the thickness of the hook on the end, like of that metal piece. So it is, on a good one, it's engineered to have that push and that pull to be accurate. But the thing is, you have to think, tape measures themselves, the banding, it's quite thin metal. The more you use it, the more that end piece is pinned and it gets pushed back and forth, you're going to get more slop, so your tape is going to wear out. Same thing with your spool inside to retract it. Eventually, your tape needs to be replaced. If you're doing very fine work, make sure your measurements are right on.
Yep, and the best.
I think that's a good spot to lend off here to Otis.
Absolutely, the best way to know is if your tape stops rolling up on it by itself, and you need to push it in. While it still might be a good tape for some things, probably a good idea to go spend the $15 that it costs to go get a new tape measure.
Retire that one to the house, boys.
It's
The
literally,
old tape and go build a chicken coop with it.
it is not that expensive. Throw it in the truck box for that new guy who doesn't come with one, and you pass it off to him, where that 1/8 of an inch slop isn't going to matter for the new guy who can't cut anything accurately to an 1/8 of an inch. and it'll be okay for him to use it because you know you're getting a quarter either way, regardless.
All right, gentlemen. It's been fun. It always is, and a pleasure.
Absolutely, boys.
Yeah, that was a great, great conversation tonight, gentlemen, and I hope everyone enjoyed the show.
Yep, I appreciate everyone who has stayed with us. Big shout out to John Fashcroft who started hosting us. I appreciate it, brother, getting us out there to people who might not have heard us. Big shout out to Buzz Busby for the diamond you just donated. Y'all have a great night. Since no one on here has anything to show, go ahead, say goodnight to the crowd, Dave.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate having you here. I hope you all learned something, and jump in here with us next time. We'll be back with a bigger hammer.
Yep, absolutely. Fash, tell them goodbye.
All right, hey, the only shilling I got to do is come back next week. We're gonna be here every Monday, so you can come back, learn more, or just hear some stories. Everyone have a good night.
Yep, absolutely. 9 Eastern every Monday we will be here telling you all the great stuff about that good old blue collar work, boys. So, with nothing else to say, I will leave y'all to the outro music. Have a great night. I'll see you next week, boys.
Yeah.
Bye.